Hello and welcome. My name is Teresa from the blog and YouTube channel freetoflower.com, where I share our simple life on our European farm, homestead living, from scratch cooking, raising animals, and growing our own food. Hit the subscribe button if any of those are things that interest you. Today I want to talk to you about the real life on a homestead. There are so many joys to living on a farm, but there are definite challenges too. So let's dive into some of them. Come along. Let's get some morning chores done, and let's touch on the topic of a real homestead life right off the bat, which is there are so many things that need doing around the farm, and I am so fortunate in that I have a lot of help. So we tag team together with my husband and other people that come to help us occasionally at the farm, and somebody takes care of one task one day and another task another day. Otherwise, it can get very heavy to have to repeat the same task day in, day out, both physically and mentally. So I would suggest this as tip number one for anybody who is looking to start a homestead. Make sure you have some people on hand that can support you, either when you're away from your farm or when you just need help, because we all do. We raise 100 meat birds twice a year, so 200 per year. We raise broiler chickens. It's quite a lot of work, but we found that we absolutely love home-raised chicken meat. Our boys eat a lot of meat, and so we go through a lot of it, and this is definitely worth it for us. But it's one of those things that when slaughter time comes, we absolutely need help, as well as towards the end when the chickens are bigger, need lots of feeding. Having help on hand is just invaluable. You can see we keep a bunch of horses, and we recently welcomed a new foal to the herd, which was so sweet. She is adorable, just so little, but already so full of energy. And this is another area where we definitely get help. It's much easier to get help with horses than almost any other animal because people just love horses, and we have some friends come and help, and then they can ride in exchange. And honestly, we kind of run it like a small family farm with our friends. So whoever wants to chip in and help comes along, but we also keep somebody on hand who helps us pretty much year round. With 2 small kiddos and a bunch of other businesses that we run, I'm not sure how we would get everything done. We would probably need to downsize quite a bit, and that would take away the joy of homesteading in a lot of ways. And this way we get to support a whole nother family, which we absolutely love doing. So here I am milking our cow Heidi. Heidi is also expecting a calf in a late summer. We're really excited for that. Very often with a dairy cow, people ask me, how do you do it every single day? And this can be one of the giant challenges of homestead living. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning. I milk the cow on some days, and on other days, our farmhand lady milks the cow, or somebody else will come help out. This has been massively liberating for us, and it allows me to attend to things in the kitchen a little bit more, like I'm here. I'm milling my own flour. This is something I started doing very recently, but I've noticed that my sourdough is just so much better when I mill my own flour. I just decided to get the attachment for the KitchenAid that works perfectly well for me, and my sourdough starter and all sourdough rises so much better when I use fresh flour. So here I am making my homemade soft sourdough pretzel recipe with freshly milled flour. This is an extremely rewarding recipe, but I'm going to be completely transparent with you. It does take quite some work. So the dough is pretty simple and straightforward. You add flour, water, some honey, a little bit of salt, sourdough starter, of course, mix it all together, and then go and let it proof. That is pretty straightforward. I have found that the time needed for proofing the dough for sourdough pretzels can vary. Luckily, I have my proofing box, which allows me to standardize the temperature in my house a little bit more throughout the seasons. So that makes it a little bit more predictable, but it definitely takes a little longer than bread in my experience. If you'd like the full recipe to print out or just to read, you can head to my blog, feedtoflour.com. I will link it in the description box below, where I include all of the directions, including the fermentation times and all the ins and outs. If you've never made pretzels before, they are incredibly similar to bagels in that they are also first boiled. Now, this was something that stopped me from trying to make sourdough pretzels or bagels for a really long time. I felt really intimidated by that step, but let me be the first one to tell you, it really is not that dramatic, and it's so much simpler than it seems. If you just follow the directions on my blog in the recipe, you will end up with delicious sourdough pretzels that are a great crowd pleaser. I love making these for parties or if we have some visitors coming, as they just make really nice finger food, especially to have with beer, which is a big thing here in the Czech Republic. One thing that people often don't realize unless they live on a homestead is quite how much work there is to do at practically all times. And there is never a point where you get to the end of your list. I don't think I realized this before we started living here full time either. So it's really important to have ways to balance work and life a little bit. Those are not always perfect, and we are not perfect at them either, but we do follow a lot of rhythms in our daily and weekly and monthly life to ensure that we don't completely burn out on farm work and all the other work there is to do. We always try to have a rest day at least once a week. We have periods of day when we rest. I take an afternoon nap on Sundays religiously. It's one of the things I look forward to all week long. And when all else fails, the best thing we found is to just go on a day trip. We pack up the kids, we pack up our things, and we go to one of the nearby castles or other sites, and we get ice cream, we eat out, and we just get away from it for a few hours. Now, this is possible if you have help or if you don't have help, as you leave and come back on the same day, so all animals and chores and everything else will probably still be fine. But we have found that it is so much easier with having help, of course, because we don't have to worry about whether all the chores are going to get done on that one day or not. That being said, we are a very small farm, and so many of the things here do depend on us doing them personally. So for example, my husband is the one responsible for all the renovation works, building works, construction work, and there's always something going on. We are currently completing the construction of a horse round pen, which, if you're not familiar, it's just another tool for training horses, and it'll be an area to ride on horses when the weather is not great. We are also building out some cool new things that I am going to introduce to you in a later video. I don't want to spoil the tea on that one quite yet. And we're also working on our garden. I've mentioned this before, but we have converted our garden to a permaculture garden, and we are implementing a pretty elaborate plan that'll take us probably 3 years to complete. So talk about work overwhelm, oh my goodness. But so far it has been so rewarding. I'm going to do a full garden walkthrough soon. You are going to see how much everything has grown. Over here I'm planting some beets and other seeds that get planted in late spring, early summer. And by now, which I am recording this voiceover about 3 weeks later, the garden has just erupted. It is a forest in all of those raised beds, which is exactly what we want to see. And one of the reasons that we converted it to a permaculture garden is so that we have a lower workload. Weeding and constantly dealing with pests and disease is such a joy killer when it comes to growing your own vegetables. We've experienced that last year and we did not want to go there again. So we decided we were going to do a little bit of extra work up front, which is starting a new gardening system, so to speak, in order to have less work as the season goes on and as we're starting to get a harvest in and need to preserve and can all the things. One of the things that is really important to me in life is honesty and transparency. And I feel like a lot of the homesteading channels out there are just not honest and transparent about what goes into running a farm. And they're definitely not honest in telling us about all the help that they get. And so we are often left on the other side of the screen thinking that these people just get it done all on their own while being perfectly rested and happy day in, day out. And I'm just here to tell you that that is not true. First of all, just like with everything else, help is needed, and most of these people do get help. And so I am so proud to say that I get help. Is it as much help as I would like? Maybe not. I could always use more help. But is it enough to make this doable and to help me see the joy in it every single day? Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming along to do my daily chores with me. If you enjoyed following along, please hit the subscribe button. I post a new video every week all about life on our European farm. Till next week.